Good morning, everybody. The Simple Handicap for Wednesday, November 13th. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. Before we get into the market rundown for NFL week number 11, I just want to remind everybody this morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, the Week 11 live stream will go live on the RAS Picks YouTube channel. If you're watching already here on the channel, you can set a reminder by hitting the subscribe button down below. If you're watching or listening on Apple or Spotify, would love if you headed over to the YouTube channel for the live stream preview. I'll go through every single game in extensive detail, take all the questions and answers from the live chat. Great community building as we continue to grow each and every week with the video. So if you do have time to jump over, would love to have you participating in the show later this morning. With all that said, let's get you on your way this morning with the market rundown for this Wednesday morning for NFL week number 11. Things kick off Thursday Night Football tomorrow with the Washington Commanders on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. No movement to really speak of in terms of the point spread over the last 24 hours. We saw a touch of Philadelphia money come into the market yesterday. Total in this game down to 48.5. Decently important O-line news for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jordan Mailata is trending in the right direction to be back on the field for this game. Back-to-back full practices for him. Commanders dealing with a bevy of offensive line injuries. Lots of guys limited. Lots of that is speculated to be more rest-driven than it is injury-driven, based on how everything has been said so far this week. Brian Robinson is the name to watch out of the backfield today, as we will get his final practice report and see if he is going to be suiting up for this game on Thursday Night Football. Jumping over to Sunday, it's the Green Bay Packers on the road at the Chicago Bears. Still 6 across the board for Green Bay. 41 is the total from left to right across the screen. The news we were anticipating from the Bears showed up yesterday. Shane Waldron is out as offensive coordinator. Thomas Brown is in as offensive coordinator. Listeners of the podcast, you'll be familiar with the name Thomas Brown. I was certainly excited about him taking over for Carolina. We bet the new coach and play caller bump last year, and we won with it in week 1. Is it going to repeat in week 1 here with the new play caller for the Chicago Bears? I have my doubts, as there continues to be mounting evidence that there are serious problems internally for this Bears team. Not only was the play caller switch made to perhaps negate some of those issues from swirling around in the media, but things took another curveball yesterday as there were more allegations to some of the issues going on with calls to bench Caleb Williams allegedly being tied back to DJ Moore. Now, there was the Dove tweet, which a lot of people don't tend to take serious anymore, but was more telling was diving into some of the forums for the Chicago Bears, people close to the team, and seeing some fan-driven accounts come out with the sources. There seems to be truth to the speculation, at least on some level. I'm not here to break rumors on the show, but it's hard not to go through the Twitter feed, see what's being reported, and then start to think about what you're seeing on the field from the Bears and the lack of effort and some of the videos that show up. And that report, while it might be from one of the aggregate accounts to sort of spark things rolling, you start to be very concerned about the Bears and what is going on until perhaps the head coach, Matt Eberflus, would be relieved of his duties. Now, in terms of Thomas Brown, if you're looking at this and saying, hey, look, these rumors are going to subside, the Bears are going to get a full effort, we know Thomas Brown has the ties to the LA Rams and Sean McVay. That was the reason for the excitement last year when he took over in Carolina. He was very lackluster, and that's probably being too complimentary of his performance as play caller and OC in Carolina. He had the duties taken away from him shortly after he was given them last year. It was an in-season switch and switch again. I don't know how much of that was him. I don't know how much of that was Carolina and the situation. But it's not like he's stepping into a good situation here for the Bears. We will see later today what the injury status is for 3 starting offensive linemen. We will see what we're getting on the defensive side in the secondary as well. Tons of concerns here for the Chicago Bears. And I think part of that is why we're not seeing a price that is obviously quite high for the Packers not yet be resisted in the market. Cleveland on the road at the New Orleans Saints. It is New Orleans -1 across the board with a total of 44.5. Speculated we'd see over money yesterday. We saw a little bit of that yesterday morning with a half-point bump off the key of 44 to 44.5. And there continues to be Browns money coming into the market as anticipated as well, down to a flat 1, like the Browns, like the over in this game. LA Rams on the road at the New England Patriots. We're seeing LA Off the reopen of 5.5, now down to a 4.5 price at Pinnacle. The market low. FanDuel mirroring that number as well, slightly higher on the VIG. 5 everywhere else across the screen this morning. So we are seeing Rams money initially in the first 24 hours of this market being opened. We did see a little bit of over money come into the market, 43 up to 44. Rams played on Monday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins with their slowest tempo game in several weeks. It was a big reversal for how that offense was operating. We saw the New England Patriots, although they didn't light up the scoreboard, play a little bit quicker with Drake May last week in their win over the Chicago Bears. So a bit of a contrasting tempo. We do know the Patriots like to push things a little bit more with Drake May. He's been the victim of a few weather games and a few poor spots. This game at the moment, not a lot forecasted. And with the forecast mentioned, worth noting that Green Bay-Chicago game, which looked really ugly on Monday evening and into Tuesday morning, things are subsiding there. So as we get multiple weather models closer to the true picture of what we're going to see, we're seeing the weather chances decrease in that game. We'll get the Kevin Roth weather report a little bit later that'll have any impact on the market, but it doesn't look as significant as it was potentially looking yesterday when we spoke here on the podcast. Baltimore on the road at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Baltimore -3. Total in this game up to 48. Over money continues to come into the market. We haven't seen the significant movement on the side when you're looking at Baltimore. Key injury news is going to be Kyle Hamilton. And what are we seeing from him later today? For Pittsburgh, Alex Highsmith will not be playing in this game. A key linebacker from the team got hurt. He's going to miss multiple weeks. So that is a minor to moderate injury to note for the Pittsburgh Steelers when you consider the Ravens' defensive backfield and the number of running backs they now have healthy, with Keaton Mitchell being added to the mix, a trio of running backs that Harbaugh was certainly happy about having and being able to divide some playing time between those guys past Derrick Henry. Las Vegas on the road at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins off of the win. 7.5 reopens, 7.5. We are seeing 8 at Chris, 8 at Buckeye as well. Total from 45 down to 44. We know that Scott Turner is the new offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. That was a turnaround and a full change for the offensive staff for the Raiders that they handled going into the bye. So similar to what you're seeing in Chicago, you're getting a Raiders offensive coaching staff revamp as well. Everything so far to date that we have heard from reporters around the team, citing sources inside the team, is a big emphasis on the run game. It couldn't be more Antonio Pierce if you tried with that. And so this is very much turning into what we saw last year when he took over with the run game. It's been something they've been saying all season. Hasn't shown itself on the field at all in any material way so far to date. The run game has been putrid. Does the new staff change that? We'll see. That is certainly sounding like it is the focus for the Raiders. I also don't know how well it's going to work when you're getting more than a touchdown on the road in a spot here playing against the Miami defense that looked a whole lot better against the LA Rams than it had for the duration of the season leading up to that moment. Jacksonville on the road at the Detroit Lions. Detroit a 13-point favorite across the board with a total from 50.5 down to 47. We don't know about Brian Thomas Jr. We don't know about multiple offensive linemen, but I do believe we know about Trevor Lawrence. Even though the injury services are reporting it as unclear, everything that was spoken about the injury last week suggested that it is a moderate to severe AC joint sprain, which returning on a one-game missed duration would be very unusual. I think you have to look at this game as another Mac Jones start. That is what the forums are suggesting. If that is the case, you start to wonder about the coaching staff in this game. The bye is on deck for Jacksonville. When you're thinking about this game, if a team is going to make an in-season coaching change, typically it happens the game immediately prior to the bye, following the game, which in most cases with the shift would require a loss to happen. And so if you're putting yourself in the shoes of Doug Peterson here, who's been very loose in his press conferences the last couple weeks, taking on a very different tone. If you put yourself in his shoes and you know that this game with a loss is the end of the line, potentially, what does that look like in the second half if you're getting beat up pretty bad here and you have a quarterback who looked like he's at best a questionable backup in the NFL, and you have multiple offensive linemen down and you have your running back who's the better runner banged up, and you can't run the football, and you can't generate any offense, and you're just getting bashed by the Lions, what does that look like in the second half if you know the end is coming at the end of the game? I don't get the sense that this Jags team is like bought in to win one for Doug and get him another week. That's just not the sense I get. Now, is it going to happen after the game if the Jags lose? I'm speculating on that. If there was a time for it to happen, you would certainly think this is it. And I say all of that to bring up this number at 13. It's a big number. It's an inflated number. But if this is the end of the line for the Jags, it's not a number big enough the way that the Lions are playing and the way that that coaching staff is bought in. It's back-to-back road games for the Lions that were emotional wins, but you look on deck for Detroit, it's Indy on deck next week. So it's not like this is a typical like sandwich spot that you might circle a reference. This is a game where we've seen the Lions a couple weeks ago cover an equal number against the Titans. We saw them be competitive in laying bigger numbers earlier in the year as well. I wonder if we see the Lions get bet. It's a side that I like at 13. Minnesota on the road at the Tennessee Titans. Vikings a 6-point favorite across the board. Total from 41 down to 40 and trending lower. 6 points in a short total game with a better defense. Coming into the building is going to be a challenge for Tennessee, but I'm not counting out that Titans defense either. I do think this is going to be a lower scoring and a tighter scoring game, but I do feel like the Vikings kind of at peak pricing here, if not perhaps exceeding that when we consider what the Vikings were closing at last week against Mac Jones and the Jags. Kind of like the Titans in this game and do think we see them get bet as the week goes on. Seattle on the road at the San Francisco 49ers. It's been 6.5 all week. The total holding steady at 49.5. I think to me, a little bit telling. We haven't seen the 49ers buy anywhere in the market so far as you're thinking about how many guys they got back last week and the direction that this offense is trending and the familiarity and the dominance that the 49ers showed in that earlier season matchup, and there still haven't been bet at this number. It's an all-in spot for the Seattle Seahawks here at 6.5. They made some changes. You want to talk about just changes on defense and importance of it and what you're looking at. Another switch for Mike McDonald at linebacker, as Dodson, the leading tackler so far through 10 weeks, has been traded. It's a position that McDonald values. It's one he tweaked a lot in Baltimore to get right. It's a matchup where he certainly has to get things right after just getting beat up badly by the 49ers in the first meeting. And so that was a pretty interesting move to see come through. And as you're looking at what might be, I mean, everything around this is really starting to look like this is a spot where it's an all-in effort from the Seahawks. And so that 6.5 number looking pretty appealing here on the road. Atlanta on the road at the Denver Broncos. Broncos still 2-point favorites across the board with a total of 44. Not much of an update here. Kansas City on the road at the Buffalo Bills. Bills 2.5-point favorites across the board, but I don't know if that is going to last. When you see banged up Bills, a key Bills injury account tweeting out that it's not looking good on Sunday for Dalton Kincaid. We already know that Keon Coleman is going to miss this game. We'll find out more about Amari Cooper later today. Starting to be a pretty banged up Bills team, making the Twitter handle very relevant in this case of reporting. I do think we see the Chiefs get bet. It's a side that I like, and we saw the over get bet yesterday by a respected professional. It was down to as low as 45. We saw that get hit. There was another wave about mid-afternoon yesterday. We're back out to 46.5. So Sunday night, Monday morning, there was some under money on this game. As we see later, bit higher limits. Originating offshore, one of the more prominent books was the move, and we saw this total get bet up as we talk about later week moves, being a little bit more predictive, especially this season than what you're seeing earlier season in the market. Here you see a game that was bet up later in the week. The last move so far, we are talking on Wednesday morning, a long way to go here. But the bigger move so far this week has been on the over in this game from a respected source yesterday. Cincinnati on the road at the LA Chargers. LA down to a 1-point favorite at Chris, 1.5 at Buckeye Pinnacle, FanDuel, DK, and BetOnline 2 -10 at Circa. Total up to 47. We released over 46.5 yesterday. Indianapolis Colts on the road at the New York Jets. Jets out to 4. There's a wave of money yesterday on the New York Jets. They keep getting lined. They keep getting bet. It's kind of the way the season has been going despite their results. More money coming in on the Jets yesterday as we are out to 4 on this game. 44 remains the total left to right across the screen. And then Monday Night Football, it's the Houston Texans on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. A little bit more under money into this market as we see a market low of 42 this morning. Point spread from 5.5 out to 7.5. No movement on the side in this game over the last 16 hours. That'll do it for me today. Reminder to everybody that there is a live stream preview over on the YouTube channel getting going at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Would love it if you have the time to jump over and join in the live chat. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in this morning. We'll talk to you bright and early tomorrow morning again here on the podcast feed.